Hi folks, Robert Lowell Goller here. Thank you for joining me for our weekly chats about local history. I want to do something a little bit different this week. Instead of talking about one topic, I want to talk about a variety of topics really quick, but namely the topics I have in my new book, Who Put the East in East Aurora. Now, since I've been had announced the book a couple weeks ago, I've been getting a lot of questions, and I've been trying to keep up with social media posts to let you all know about what's in the book, what's the book all about, and where can you buy it. Well, first, what's in the book? Well, I'm in Hamlin Park, one of my favorite places, and I talk a lot about Hamlin Park in here. Of course, the story about Cicero Hamlin and how he donated the land to the park and why it must remain a park in perpetuity. How old the baseball diamond here is in Hamlin Park. How we fought to have the Erie County Fair hosted here. It was hosted here twice, and then of course we wanted it again, and we didn't win. Hamburg won the Erie County Fair. The football field, the struggle to get a decent football field here in East Aurora, I include that all in here. But I also, in addition to answering the question of who put the East in East Aurora, why we don't have a West Aurora, I delved through dug into all these old records, village records, postal service records, state archive records to answer that question. There's been a lot of stories over the years of why we are East Aurora without a West Aurora, and they are all wrong. I discovered that the stories that we have heard throughout time, throughout the past decades, are not exactly accurate. And so I've discovered that why we actually have an East Aurora, and why, if you may be familiar with the village that's out in the Finger Lakes, the village of Aurora, why we are actually west of that Aurora. So we're East Aurora, but we're west of that other Aurora. So I talk about that. I answer that question here. It goes back to 1850 of why we are East Aurora without the West Aurora. You may not have heard of the village of Auroraville. I talk about that. We used to be the village of Auroraville, and how we got our name. So that's the title question that I answer. But I also talk about Hamlin Park, our horse racing history. Speaking of Cicero Hamlin, I talk about how famous he really was, and his champion horse, Mambrino King. You probably heard about Mambrino King. I dug through the records to figure out why he was so famous. There were a lot of important horses back then in the 1800s, but why was Mambrino King specifically world famous and came right here from East Aurora? The judges' stand, which is a remnant of the old racing days, I delved into the history of that, followed the path of its move around our community, and it's still outside the nursing home on Main Street. I talk about the history of our schools, why we are a union-free school district. We often get confused about that, of why we're a union-free school district rather than a central school district, and why being union-free has nothing to do with the lack of teacher unions. A lot of people think that because we're union-free that there are no teacher unions allowed, and that's not true. Talk about the school colors, how we were very, very close to being olive, green, and white. Imagine that. And we've gotten so used to blue and white that it's hard to imagine that olive green would have been our school colors. How the Blue Devil became our mascot. And then I talk about how some students had to actually fight to attend and graduate from our public school district in a day of back in the days of discrimination, official discrimination, even here in New York State. And why German was banned in our community, in our school district back during World War I, and how not only was the German language banned, but German culture. They wanted to get rid of anything associated with the German culture, even though it would be German American citizens who would be having German festivals, attending church services in the German language, that there was this discrimination against all things German. And I delved through, dug deep into the archives to find the newspaper archives and official records and various places to answer that question as well. So, and then finally I talk about shopping. How we shop is vastly different in a small community, even in East Aurora, is vastly different than it was just even 50 years ago. I talk about the beloved Hub's Park Grocery. I talked about that on a video just recently, and I include an entire chapter on them. But also the Larkin self-service style. The Larkin stores you might be familiar with. We had 4 of them actually at one point on Main Street, and they were grocery stores. The Larkin Company had started these stores to essentially get rid of warehouse merchandise, a backlog of merchandise. So they had these economy stores. But one of the things that they did that made history in small towns, including East Aurora, is they introduced this concept of picking out your own things. You could self-serve, go around and pick out your own items. As before, you had a clerk that helped you. Even a grocery store, the clerk would pick things out, and that revolutionized shopping. And there was actually a battle between whether some stores kept the clerk model because they felt that it was rude to not have a clerk helping you, and others went full steam ahead on the self-serve model. And of course, today, to have a clerk helping you at a store and picking out the items for you was rather unheard of. So how we shop is different, and how the small town, I go into how small town grocery stores and small mom and pop stores, what ended up making them obsolete in many cases, and the change in the culture of small towns and why we no longer have stores like that. So I have it all in this book. You might be familiar with some of my earlier books that were very text or photo heavy, and this is a more traditional history book where I have a mixture of photographs about Hamlin Park. That's actually, that picture there is pretty cool. It's probably looking similar to the look where we have behind me in the Grove. And heavily footnoted and headnoted. I wanted to make sure that all my sources were accurate, and that you could go back and look and see where my sources were. I get very frustrated. I say this in the introduction. I get frustrated with history books that don't have sourcing, and you never know. They say something in the book, and you're not quite sure if it's true. Even on a local history level, inaccurate information often gets repeated over and over again, and that's very frustrating. So I did my very, very best to make sure that everything I say in there is documented and backed up. So that's what's in the book. Who put the East in East Aurora? I answer that question along with probably more than 30 other questions about the history of our community. What I'm trying to do with this book, on the front you'll see book 1. I'm trying to do a series, and it's a mixture. As many of you know, I've written a monthly newspaper column in the East Aurora Advertiser for probably 15 years or more. And I do a lot of research. I really enjoy research. And what ended up happening is I had all those articles that ended up published, and they end up published and then they kind of go away. And what ended up happening one time is that someone was asking a question on Facebook that I had answered in an article. And I thought, wouldn't it be great to have all the articles in a book form? And but then I had a bunch of research that didn't get published, and there's new research that I'm working on, and so I literally made a spreadsheet of all the things that I was working on, so new things published, old updated versions of previous things that were published, and I was putting them all in books into sections. So this one has Hamlin Park, shopping, Elm Street. I talk about the history of Elm Street, and then future books will have different categories, and I've categorized them in the hopes that they will make for nice, easy reading, and that you can learn a lot more about the history of East Aurora in nice chapters and in nice sections. So that's my goal. I'm hoping this will be volume 1 of several volumes, including a sneak peek. One future book will be titled, Does East Aurora Legally Exist? There's some interesting questions about that. And I'm also working on the history of Christmas. Of course, with the Hallmark movies being filmed here in East Aurora, there's a lot of interest about that. So I'm working on those for the future. So where can you get the book? Well, just the easiest way is to look at my website, robertlowellgoller.com, and there's a section called Buy the Books, and I'm updating every place that you can buy it. You can buy it online, you can buy it directly from the publisher, but also I would love if you would support local bookstores, Bookworm, Fiddler's, the Roycroft Campus Store, the Copper Shops gallery on the campus, and there'll be several more, but those stores are all already on board, and you can. The best part of buying it At a local stores, you get it in your hand right away. You purchase it, and it's in your hand right away, ready to read. You don't have to have it shipped, and you don't have to pay shipping if you buy it at a local store, so that's pretty cool too. I will be having author events and book signings, so keep an eye on the website, robertlowellgoller.com. And I'll be updating everything there. So, and finally, thank you so much for supporting my local projects, my local book projects, my articles, my research. It would be a shame to do all this work and have nobody read it. So I'm really thrilled that people are taking an interest and asking questions. I have been delayed in responding to emails and Facebook messages, and that's a good problem, I guess, but I feel bad not getting back to people right away. But I thank you for the interest in it, and feel free to go buy the book. They would make a great, not to plug again, but make a great Christmas gift for anyone who loves East Aurora, so keep that in mind. But October 7th, it'll be available at the local stores, and just check out robertlowellgoller.com to keep track of what is happening with the book. Again, I am Robert Lowell Goller. I am the Town and Village Historian. I do have the honor of serving in that position, but this book project and a lot of my research and these videos are not officially connected to my duties as Town and Village Historian. Again, thank you for supporting this book and all my projects. And if you have any questions, as always, comments or topic ideas, feel free to send them along either in the comments or send me a private message. As always, thank you for keeping history alive from Hamlin Park. We'll see you next time. Take care.